In the previous episode, I briefly mentioned how Activision won my confidence with their lineup of fantastic Atari 2600 titles, and this, well, it's not one of them. Yes, it's made by Activision, and yes, it's on the Atari 2600, but it really pales in comparison to the other efforts on that system. Amongst a set of aces, it stands out as a glaring fault.
Even just by looking at this game, you can see that it's not up to Activision's usual standard. I mean, it's not unappealing to look at, and the players are animated well, but most of Activision's games have a larger amount of fidelity and background detail. In tennis, all you have to look at are some boundary lines and two blocky characters moving against a bright green screen. Visually, it's much more in line with Atari's in-house sports titles like basketball or golf. In fact, as I first played tennis on Atari's 32-in-1 cartridge, I thought it was one of these early sports games. As 32-in-1's rendition of this game is identical, except that the Activision logo has been curiously scrubbed out. Oh, and the court is also blue, but I've read that's because it's an NTSC cartridge running on a PAL system. Atari's own tennis game, Real Sports Tennis, looks closer to what I'd expect from Activision, with a detailed scoreboard and high-res characters, though you do have to pay the price of having the tiniest tennis ball imaginable. As for the gameplay in Activision's tennis, it's not so much tennis as it is Pong with people. Mainly because you don't press the button to swing your racket, as you do in most other tennis games. Instead, you just position the racket to make contact with the ball, and the game swings automatically. Mechanically, this is pretty much identical to moving a paddle around, and the ball moves with that characteristic back and forth motion of a Pong game, with only that little shadow and a slightly curved trajectory making any difference. Of course, the scoring system of tennis is in place, and so are the more specific tennis rules, though they are almost entirely irrelevant in this game. Try as I might, I was never able to make a serving fault, or to get the ball to hit the net. It's very rare that the ball will ever go out on the full, or get a chance to bounce twice within the court, so you're basically left with Pong's miss it and lose system. This cartridge offers 4 game variants. You can play slow or fast, with one human player or with 2. The 2-player modes are what they look like, simple yet competitive, good, brief, fun. But the 1-player modes are anything but brief, or fun. And that's all thanks to the Activision Computer Pro, who dominates the court and returns almost every shot you can make. While I do my best to aim for the open spots, the Pro gets there without fail. Just give me a break, I've only started playing. Can't I have a fair degree of challenge for a novice? And this is the game's only difficulty setting, with the difficulty switches just changing the angle at which the ball travels. I may be a complete amateur at this game, but after watching my opponent swarm to every shot, I begin to suspect that something's wrong here. I mean, just look. Come on. Come on. At the risk of being a sore loser, I'm going to make the call and say this is a classic example of poor AI programming. Though this might take some explaining, especially as modern gamers are used to bad AI manifesting itself as stupidity rather than capability. But that's because modern bots have to perform computationally complex tasks, like navigating a 3D environment. In games this basic, it's actually easier to program an opponent that is infallible. All you have to do is write code to track the ball and move the computer player straight to that position. It takes more effort to program the capacity to make mistakes, and after a few minutes playing this game, it becomes painfully evident that that effort was not made here. Activision, you really dropped the ball on this one.
When it comes to sports in the world of video games, tennis easily has the longest and most influential history of all, with the very first video game usually cited as Tennis for Two, and the simplified tennis of Pong being another cornerstone of gaming. In the evolution of tennis games, Activision's tennis is middle of the road. It is an exceptional game of Pong, but a rather poor game of tennis, and amongst Activision's other efforts on the system, it just doesn't hold up today.